So once again, my name is Fabian Kienle, and I would like to go through a couple of things regarding Citrix Enterprise Mobility, but that actually is only one of many things that Citrix is delivering. Actually, it is a set of technologies that perfectly fit together, and as I already mentioned in the presentation of Jan Feldman, most of the important things simply were missing and not there. So that's why it's important that you get a real insight on enterprise mobility, because there were many mistakes. The whole idea of that, what we actually do is, and that's really a problem, that's really the thing is, it's not about technology. Jan made the mistake to talk about features. And this is exactly what enterprise mobility is not about. You should always ask yourself why you do things. Why do you plan things like that? And in the end, if you ask yourself on where the IT or man-made problems actually are, then you have to think twice. Always think why you do things. I'm not here to tell you anything about features. That's one thing. Ask yourself, why do you do that? And when we look at problems and we think about what the man-made problems of IT actually are, and that's where it all starts, then it's simply the fact that we were living in a world of monolithic client and server infrastructure. In other words, we are living in a world which is unfortunately still dominated by Microsoft, because Microsoft is permanently telling you what you should do, especially in a client-server world. The next time when they're going to tell you what you should do will be next year. Most of you know it, some of you don't. That is when they force you, gently ask you to migrate from Windows XP to Windows 7, right? A step which is completely unnecessary. Because I'm quite sure the hardware that you are running in maybe your client-server infrastructure that you have is fully intact. It's perfectly working. You have an operating system running on it. It's perfectly working. You have applications running on that. They are perfectly working. They are doing the job you are expecting from them. And now this vendor is coming along and telling you, we're not supporting this operating system anymore. The problem that actually occurs from this, and that's the root of all evil in this case, is that if you think of the desktop of a layered model, like a cake, like a layered cake, you have the hardware, you have the operating system, you have the application, and actually somehow the user as form of a Windows profile. So actually what's happening next year is that there's one company asking you to replace this layer. The problem in this world today, or as we know it for 15 years, is that every layer of your desktop is tightly coupled. It's installed. And at Citrix, we hate the word install, because install means super expensive, lots of work, and freaking issues that you don't have to have. That's the reason why we think about virtualization. The idea of virtualization, server virtualization, desktop, or even application virtualization, doesn't matter. The goal of each kind of technology is to isolate the layers from each other, to make these layers independent from each other. That's the whole idea why we do it. The problem in the classical world of VDI, or application delivery, actually is that compared to this world, you're not forced to actually exchange your entire hardware. Can any one of you tell me what is the most expensive thing in a Windows migration? I give you a clue. It's not the hardware, and it's not the Microsoft licenses. What is the most expensive thing? Application testing, gentlemen. Oh, ladies and gentlemen. Because if you don't know if the apps you are using are not 100% compatible and working on Windows 7 or 8, you don't even need to think about it. You don't even have to have the CD with a Windows source code. It's completely worthless if you don't know if your apps work. And this is where all the friction and the shit begins, excuse my French, right? It's your money. It's costing your money, because you're forced to obey to these release cycles. That's what we call actually a man-made problem, because it has not to be there. There are some people who are creating this problem for us. Next thing, of course, I already mentioned proprietary apps. We are living in a world, fortunately, where we can use Windows apps. But the real driver for enterprise mobility and everything we spoke about is the fact that people say, hey, wait a minute. We are living in a world where we have lots of devices, Android-based, iOS-based, maybe some other mobile operating systems in future. And the thing simply is, how can I deliver my application to this new type of devices? Or the other way, do I still need to use Microsoft-based applications? Maybe I want to use mobile apps, right? Maybe I develop the next generation of my application for iOS or for Android and no longer for Windows platform. Maybe I do it web-based or still Java, whatever it is. The thing is, it's not just the choice of devices that is getting bigger, which is forming our cloud world. Also the selection of application types for all of these kind of operating systems is getting bigger and bigger. And that is exactly the reason that with the multiple choice of mobile and standard operating system, with the choice of application types that are getting bigger and bigger, it is more and more difficult to bring all this kind of flexibility and unlimited apps and capabilities all together. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the reason why it's not just important to have a technology like that, what Citrix offers, that delivers all of this, or a protocol that makes sure that this perfectly works over any kind of connection. It is important that these kind of apps that were never made for an iOS, Android, Web OS, BlackBerry OS whatsoever, that you can say, I don't care what the device is, I want to make sure that my app, regardless which type, runs there. And of course that, in my eyes, the worst thing that ever happened to IT, actually tied to the first one, fat devices with local OS. I think this is the biggest fear of Microsoft, that these fat clients become irrelevant, and I'm quite sure they will become, because there's no need for an operating system anymore. All you need is just a type of device with a type of OS. That's it. And if the applications are no longer there and they are different, then maybe I just look for something else. So we believe the cloud era is here. And even if it's a marketing buzzword, I'm quite sure even if you don't know it, you're already in it. We believe, what are the indicators of the cloud? Definitely this. 15 years ago, I had one device. I had the corporate notebook. Meanwhile, I have 4. I have my iPhone, I have my iPad, I even have an iPad mini, which you can also win at the Aero booth, which I'll mention again next, at the end of the presentation again. I have my corporate device, I have lots of devices. The cloud world exists today because users in general have more than just one device. Because of the fact that the internet is available anywhere with lots of bandwidth means I can be online and connected anywhere I want, which means I'm no longer tied to a place. At Citrix we say the office is where you are. And I think this is absolutely true. If I would have asked my boss 15 years ago, hey boss, can I work from home? He would have said, if you want to stay at home, you take a day of vacation. Unthinkable to work from home. Today, it's mandatory. Today, you don't even think about it. It's normal to say, yeah, do home office. An output of the cloud approach, something we take for granted. You're in the middle of the cloud and you don't even know it. And the next thing, this one, SaaS application. And this is another driver. This is the why to the answer, where the answer is enterprise mobility. Enterprise mobility is the answer to this. Because the question is, do I have to buy Microsoft Office or anything else as a native Windows app? Or maybe I'm just renting it on a monthly basis? Microsoft is the best example. I could get Microsoft 365. I could even get an iPhone app from Salesforce, which we are using at Citrix internally. So the device doesn't matter, the OS doesn't matter, and the application type also doesn't matter anymore. And that's what it is. The ubiquity of devices and application types somehow has to be controlled. If I want to be able to deliver anything, anywhere, then I need to control it if it's a corporate environment. And that's exactly what it is all about. This doesn't really exist anymore, where people had to be in a building to access the things you can only get at a building. We are living in this world here, ladies and gentlemen, and that's called bring your own device. And even if some of you still think, what a fancy marketing crap, right? I'm never doing that. I'm quite sure we will get used to this very, very quickly. Most of the people at Citrix working with devices like I do here, where the device is owned by myself. It's my device. It's not owned by Citrix, it's mine. And actually I can come and bring the device I like. And that means actually It's a cool thing for companies, right? Because they don't have to take care of the client-side administration. But on the other side, it's a threat. Because what's happening if my user is working with sensitive corporate data and he's leaving the company or will be left, whatever comes first, then he's leaving with his device, and my data. And my data. That might be a threat to your company. He's taking your data and you can't do anything against that. That's the reason why enterprise mobility is needed. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the answer to the why do I need enterprise mobility. This is not just another marketing gag where you say, oh yeah, after virtualization we do mobility, right? Because it's something new and people buy it anyway. No, there's a necessity for it. If you want to be so completely independent to anything, then you have to be in control how much independence you want to give users based on device, based on location, based on the capability of the applications. Enterprise mobility is the necessary control you need if you want to give the freedom of any device anywhere. And that's the same thing. It's not just about this bring your own devices, which is owned by the user. It is about what I already mentioned. Different type of application, mobile apps, SaaS services, everything which is not delivered there, your data, the fuel of any type of application. And that's actually what the world is all about. Some of you get that later, some of you maybe earlier, but in the end, you're in the same boat. You get the same questions. How can I give this flexibility and make sure on the same side to secure everything? So this is one of the very oldest examples I usually address here, but I think it is important to really understand why we do this. It is about the key ingredients of the cloud. What do I really need to be in a perfect cloud? And the best example is actually the TV stations anywhere in the world. Why does the TV work as it does, and why is it successful? Two key reasons. I speed this up a little bit. The number one reason actually in the TV world is the client device is irrelevant. Yeah? Just imagine, I just came here yesterday evening, wanted to watch the Champions League game, Munich versus Juventus, and I rushed into the hotel here, right? And just imagine I just came to my room, turning this on, being happy that I could still watch some parts of the game, and the Estonian TV station would have told me, Fabian, we're sorry, we are only supporting Sony TV stations. This hotel only has Samsung. Sorry. What would you do? The whole TV business wouldn't work if the client would matter, right? The TV business works as it does because the client doesn't play a role. It's irrelevant. It could be any device. And imagine, these guys would go bankrupt or nuts if they have to think about what the customers, the consumers are using. That's why in a perfect cloud, the client doesn't play a role. It could be anything. Regardless what the delivery network is, cable, wireless, satellite, whatever, it is done. The second thing which is important, just imagine whenever you want to flip your channel, you have to call somebody first. Holy mother, right? We would all go nuts. So why does the TV station business or the TV business work as it does? Because you don't have to interact with anyone. You simply switch, you get the content which is advertised, and you simply take what you see without interaction. Think about the IT. When I was an IT admin myself before I joined Citrix, and somebody said, hey Fabian, I need Microsoft Visio, then I had two options. Either I took the CD, got there and installed it manually, took my time, or I told him, well, I put it in a package for net install, you have it by tomorrow. Then it took his time. Nothing was really good. So self-service is something that Citrix is offering in its entire range of products. So besides VDI technologies, besides all of that capability, Citrix is offering something that we call follow me apps and follow me data, which means the look and feel of my assigned desktops, apps, and data is following me from device to device, regardless how the look is, regardless what the OS is, if it's an iPad, if it's a Windows client, if it's a Microsoft Windows 8 Metro design, it doesn't matter. The look and feel of those resources I want are simply going with me. And that's what it is all about. To deliver something where me as a user, I don't have to ask anyone, I take it. And that's the idea behind that. And the best way to describe what you need to pay for that is actually an idea which I had when I traveled to Russia for the first time, because the Citrix FlexCast licensing can be best described with the Russian matryoshkas, right? So when you open up the big mama, right, which is on the left, that's Xen Desktop, that's VDI. When you open it up, that's not everything. So just one mama would be the competition, right? So I'm not mentioning there. So we have several mamas here, which is the next one, our XenApp product, the terminal services. Still a technology which is very good, using and avoiding Microsoft licensing or even using different types of that, followed by application virtualization technology, WAN optimization, and VPN. This is one of our key differentiators. Citrix really thinks the solution to the end. We're not just leaving you with a broker and a hypervisor and say, help yourself, right? Like others do, which do not even have a printing solution or anything else, a third-party jungle. At Citrix, it's one license per user, and you get the entire stack of technology, from the hypervisor down to the client device. The whole thing, including the self-service portal, which allows you to deliver your apps and desktops and data anyway. So again, the reason we're talking about apps, you need them to do your job. We're talking about data. You need that to work with apps. And enterprise mobility, as already mentioned, is important to understand why we need that. And these are the key drivers that are changing the way how we work. My favorite example for the cloud is actually coming from Latvia, right? La Telecom was looking for a bunch of call center agents. And what they did is they formed a little team of, I think, 30, 40 people. And all based in Latvia, and they said, look, we don't have any office space for so many people. So what they simply told them is, stay at home, work from home. We give you access to our corporate resources. We are the only ones having voice over IP integration in our delivery protocol, so that actually means you just not only take your apps and your virtual desktop with you, you also take your phone extension with you, as we can publish on a terminal server or in a virtual desktop, even soft phones from Avaya, Lucent, or even Cisco. And that actually means this is more than just a desktop. That's taking your entire infrastructure where you go. And the perfect thing about work shifting means a scenario which was unthinkable before, that you had people working from you, but not being in the office where you are. And guess what? Guess who were the most people who wanted to have that job? What type of people were that? What do you think? And that's another thing which is tied to the idea of the cloud. Mainly women with kids at home, being unable to take a full-time job, as they're somehow tied to this. And you know what? That's the perfect solution. And I believe that this was something we're going to see way more often in the future. And that's why I'm telling you, that's why the slogan of Citrix is mobile work styles. Our technology, our product is just the how. We want to answer the why. And the why actually is to say, why not change the way how people work? People are more efficient if we change the way we work. Why don't we let them work from home, making sure that this really fits into today's work style? That's the idea behind that, what Citrix is doing. Not just giving you great technology, but changing the way how we work by switching from this incredibly threatening client-server PC Windows era towards a real serious era, making everything as a centralized service available as an integrated service. Citrix makes that possible. As the only vendor, we are supporting any type of mobile OS. So that means even if you have Symbian devices, right? Even Nokia phones, anything you have, Citrix is making sure that we have a receiver for that, enabling the delivery of apps, desktops, data, anything. This is for the very first time, ladies and gentlemen, that you get back the freedom that you make your client strategy and not Microsoft for you. You decide if you buy mobile devices, you decide if you buy WISE devices, you make that choice and no one else. And that's why I personally am a fan of our technology, because it gives you a freedom which is unseen before, client side and also in the backend side. So the Citrix plugin, the Citrix receiver, is actually a very powerful thing. Our client is actually a multi-purpose client, which acts at the same time as a terminal server client, as a VDI client, application streaming client, and even as an SSL VPN client, which enables you, regardless what you do from whatever mobile device, it's always an SSL secured connection. That's the important thing. It lets you do whatever you do whenever you want, including that what I already mentioned with an integrated voice over IP support. It's more than just applications like you find it at our competition. We go further, way further. We believe that you have to take all your webcam support, which is also integrated, anything in real time with you, even over WAN connections. So that means we are supporting these mobile work styles, a very important thing. Our technology should change the way how you work, maybe optimize the way how you work, like in this example with the call center agents at La Telecom. And as already been mentioned, and now we're really getting into it, this is how we all started many years ago, and that's where we are today. And just look at that. Only a decade. At that time, it were only 1 or 2 devices. Meanwhile, we have a multitude of devices. This is one side which creates the mobility story. But in the end, and I'm quite sure you agree with me, the only reason why IT exists are application. And I'm referring back to that, what I'm already talking about. If you ask what kind of app, I'm asking you, what do you use today or tomorrow? What type of app do you use? Windows 64-bit apps, 32-bit apps, DOS apps, Java apps, virtualized apps, streamed applications, a multitude of things. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. This is an analysis that has been done and this has been started, will be finished by the end of the year, which is clearly stating how the application mix looks today. And believe me, that will come back to you. Maybe you're belonging to those customers who say, nah, I just stay with Microsoft. That's okay. Having Windows-based apps is absolutely okay. But maybe the industry is changing and in future developers are more developing apps for mobile devices because the market is bigger or, I don't know, the flexibility is there. However, the goal behind enterprise mobility as we see it is not to tell you which type you should choose. Our approach, ladies and gentlemen, is to tell you, choose whatever you think you want. And even if there's a difference in your application mix today compared to tomorrow, if your application strategy changes, it doesn't matter. Citrix is changing with you. We are able to drive this mobility theme regardless what your application mix is today or tomorrow. That's the difference. We give you the freedom to make the switch yourself. Again, you make the choice of what you do with Citrix, not a vendor. Maybe that's a threat for you or some of you, right? Because it's good and nice if somebody tells you what to do. It's simply expensive. But the Citrix technology gives you the opportunity to make all of these decisions yourself, which means you can lower costs, you can optimize the way how you do things. And of course, with all of this mobility, with this bring your own device thing, the user is thinking like that, right? He's saying, hey, cool, then I can copy and paste everything I do from my Salesforce in my local, I don't know, right? And I make an external backup, which my manager doesn't know, because I take everything on my iPad, and then I back it all up to the iCloud, right? Sounds funny, but that's a serious threat. From a manager's perspective, who's looking like that on it, saying, oh, damn, my user, which is using a bring your own device, his own device, is taking my data, which are confidential, out of my environment onto his device. And he's backing it up, even without knowing, into his iCloud, where it is unreachable, uncontrollable for me. That, ladies and gentlemen, this flexibility to say on one hand, yeah, it's cool that we have all this. Users should be flexible, but I want to protect my data and I want to protect the way how users are working it. That's why we need mobile application management, MAM, and that's why we need MDM, mobile device management, to control this incredible independence there. Making sure that it's not only about protection, it's about compliance, it's about liability. What am I doing if I'm losing valuable information? So, as already stated, that requires more than just one tool. Citrix has a complete solution for that. And we were taking this from an acquisition that we made earlier this year called ZenPrice. Citrix acquired ZenPrice, one of the market leaders for mobile device management. And as you know from Citrix, it doesn't take light years for us to integrate new products into our existing portfolio. That's why we already came across with a couple of real cool innovations. And that means Citrix is already offering, only 3 months after the acquisition, a product in two ways, and the reason why you are right that you stay in this presentation is that I'm offering you and showing you a great promotion Citrix is having until end of June, which maybe is a good idea for you to make a first trip into mobile device management. So Zen Price is now Citrix Xen Mobile. That's the new name for this product, for the complete corporate requirements on MDM. We of course deliver the MDM capabilities, as you know it from Citrix, through the receiver to any kind of device. So that means we automatically roll this out to any possible device. You no longer need to know, oh, does that work with my Blackberries, or does that work with my WebOS devices or whatsoever? Yes, it does, because Citrix delivers it like that. So it is about controlling and provisioning all of that. That's what it is all about. You have your cloud containers, means your on-premise and cloud-based resources, your native Windows desktops, your Windows applications, SaaS apps and so on, and as already mentioned, lots of mobile devices. So what we actually do is, we are controlling this by putting this into kind of containers, traceable instances, and simply create the idea how we control that. And the way how we do that is very easy and simple. We put this all in one solution that traces and controls that, and puts this unified storefront, which I've already shown you before. And all this is available in a single solution, available to any device, which is called Citrix Cloud Gateway. The Cloud Gateway is a solution that does several things. First of all, it aggregates any type of application into one front end, as you've seen. The gateway services is the integrated SSL VPN that does the job, and the storefront services, which does the self-service provisioning, all delivered to a client device. These unified storefront essentials make sure that you also automatically get a single sign-on. That means you only log on as the user at your resource, at your Active Directory, for instance, and that means all application-based sign-ons will automatically be done on behalf of the users. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's still not everything. Now the reason again, that's nice, that's flexible for the user, but where the heck is the control? And that's exactly done by Citrix MDX technologies, which are not a product, but a feature of our overall product suite. What we are doing here is not only clever, it's just simple, because we are simply repeating the idea of that, what Citrix, Microsoft, and even VMware are doing for many years. Application virtualization. If you compare that with desktop virtualization or server virtualization, a virtualized operating system is in a virtual machine. That's how the box is called. When applications are virtualized, it's called a sandbox. It's a container. And ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what we do. With the Citrix solution, we are able for the first time to isolate an application on a mobile device. So it's no longer installed, it's simply running in a box. Does that sound familiar with that what I told you in the beginning about your Windows OSs? Ladies and gentlemen, virtualization is a great idea because it solves the dependency issues between operating systems, applications, so on. That's the only reason why we do it. And Citrix is able to do it in a degree like no one else. Server virtualization and all these things are from yesterday. That's commodity, that's saturated. What we are doing here is we move it one layer ahead, and no other vendor is currently able to do that in the classical VDIs and Windows space, is that we isolate the application there. That means even if your users bring their own device, you control the application, your application, on their device. And that's one of the reasons why mobile device management is needed. You still give the flexibility, but you still control everything. That's the key reason why you do that. And while you isolate these applications, you can apply perfect rules to it, right? You could basically say, hey, when you open Salesforce, I'm not allowing you to be in the WhatsApp application or in Facebook, because I don't want you to do any maybe copy and paste or things like that. I don't want any interaction while you work with this application. Another thing actually comes, as I already mentioned, while you use all my apps, I'm not allowing you to print, I'm not allowing you to do iCloud backup, to simply avoid taking information outside of my environment. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just the fancy stuff. This is necessary in a cloud world. If you want to give so much flexibility and freedom, you have to protect your assets, and that's what this is all about. Enterprise mobility is just a logical consequence of cloud computing. It's not just about viruses and antivirus protection, it's just about to protect your assets in environments which do not belong to you anymore, and that's the client device itself. And the great thing is, if the employee tomorrow leaves your environment with his own device, then you can do something we call wipe out or lock and wipe that can perfectly be seen at the Arrow Citrix booth out there. We have very capable distributor here in the Baltics, Arrow, which are more than happy to show you everything I'm telling you live, so that you can simply say, okay, if this ex-employee is leaving the company with his iPad, I make sure that I remote wipe everything off which doesn't belong to him anymore because it's my data. That's why enterprise mobility is important, that you can control resources on devices you basically cannot control. Last but not least, I think I still have 15 minutes left, almost. Good. This is still not everything. We believe that just applications and desktop is not enough. What about files? What about data? Does any one of you know what Citrix Sharefile is? I'm quite sure you don't. It's almost brand new. But if I would raise the same question about, do you know what Dropbox is? Then I'm quite sure everybody would say, yeah, sure. People love it. Companies hate it. Why? Basically, it's a good idea, right? I love Dropbox. I mean, before we had Sharefile. Why is that? Because you can sync files, send larger presentation, larger files anywhere. It's such a comfortable solution. It works with almost any client device. Great. Why do companies hate it? Because you cannot control what a user is sending. And that's why it's mostly locked. It's a security issue. So why is Sharefile way better? Because it's, if you want so, a kind of enterprise Dropbox. An enterprise Dropbox in this case means we're delivering a solution where the major difference is, first of all, that any synchronization which is done is encrypted, one thing, and secondly, we have an Active Directory integration, which means I make the rules, which folders a user sees, which folder he can create on his own, what type of data he should sync, what he can do with the files, if he can print it, modify it, delete it. So I am in control of what a user does. He still has the flexibility, but if it's about my files the user's working with, then I have the control on what somebody's doing with all this flexibility. And that's why our product is actually a super cool product that allows you to do something like that among any device. But I'll get back to this here. Whenever I'm introducing that somewhere, you know what people say? Hey, super cool. But where are your files stored? And I said, well, it's the same thing with Dropbox. Dropbox is a customer of Citrix. They're hosting everything on a Citrix infrastructure based on Amazon Web Services in the US. Right? And especially government agencies everywhere in the world, and also here in the Baltics, say, wait a minute, does that mean that all my confidential data are outside my country? I mean, in the US? And then they say, well, it's a nice idea, but I can't do that. Not because I don't want it, it's not allowed. So what can we do? That's why Citrix is offering that in 2 versions. Also something you only find at Citrix and nowhere else. Citrix gives choice. The competition doesn't give you choice. That's the best way how to encounter Citrix. Simply because you can say, and that has nothing to do with the price, you either take the cloud version, where you just pay the thing by gigabyte, like with Dropbox, or you take the on-premise storage, which means you have your own Dropbox in your own environment. Cool, huh? Yeah, the competition would say, we have that too. But we at Citrix are always a step ahead because we always have an ace up our sleeve, right? And what is the ace on our sleeve here? This is a feature which we call storage zones. And storage zones allows you, if you have a larger environment, to have several Dropboxes inside your environment, which actually means if you have offices all over the world, or maybe let's do it smaller, maybe across the Baltics, in order to make sure that people which are sitting in Lithuania are not syncing with your with your storage here in Estonia or vice versa, you could simply say, I create as many storage zones as I want to. It's not extra licensed, it's just something that comes with the software and you can do it. So you create your own storage array of zones across your environment. It perfectly fits into any kind of client OS, wherever you want to, Windows or Mac. And even here Citrix is unique because we can simply do it, and this is actually rather cool. You can have team folders which are actually controlled by the user itself. You can create your own folder if you want to. You can also include existing network shares coming with the authorizations from your data center. And that actually means, and this is really the cool thing, and what you see here is only one example among many. In a perfect Citrix world, you take your apps and desktops wherever you go, like on an iPad, but you additionally take all your files with you with Sharefile, allowing you to have a virtual Windows Explorer where you can browse your files and apps wherever you go. But that's still not everything. I'm going to give you a very short live demo because that's still not everything. Citrix, among that what I've shown you, has something more. We have an integration into Outlook. And what I'm going to do here is, let's assume somebody of you is coming to me and saying, hey Fabian, can I have that presentation? And I said, sure you can. But the problem is it's like a 50 megabyte presentation with all these animations, right? And the Citrix Exchange server says no. And most likely, even if it would say yes, maybe yours would say no too, too large. So what are we doing here? And that's actually quite cool. So I am opening my files here, opening a mail, and I send it to myself so that I can better show you both sides and say big file. Right? And actually that's not a good idea because I'm not sure if there's any Wi-Fi. I think there's no Wi-Fi available in this room. Is that possible? Okay, so then I give you only, okay, hold on. Connect it immediately. So what I'm going to do here is, come on, connect here, Christ's sake. So, good, perfect, connected. Somehow. Yeah, perfect. Here we go. Yeah, server synced. Okay, so let's continue. I want to send this big file, and now comes the cool thing. Instead of attaching a file, which then tells you it's too big, you simply use our plugin into Exchange, into Outlook. And then I simply get here and I attach my file. I just take a small one. Let's assume this one here is not 65K, let's say it's 50 megabytes, right? And let's see what's happening now. I'm attaching this file now and it's not attached to the mail, uploaded to the Exchange server. If I do a double click here, it's inserting a hyperlink. So that means technically I'm sending you a hyperlink. In the moment when I'm sending this away, that will be quite quick, look over here, it is automatically uploading the file to my own share. That was so quick that it didn't even show here. So it's counting the percentage up, it's uploading it, which speaks for the Citrix solution that it's so fast that you can even show the details, right? So I send it right now, and as you can see, I got my mail and saying, hallelujah, Fabian was quick. He was sending me the 50 megabyte presentation. And when I now click on this, see what's happening? You get automatically this. And the great thing is, this is customizable. You could have your own corporate logo, colors, and everything that doesn't need to be a Citrix here. And I can simply download everything I want to. I can even require a user is authenticating, saying, hi, it's me, it's my phone number, it's whatever it is, so you know if people really need that or not. What's happening is also working the other way around, which is actually super cool. I could basically say, hey, I ask you 100 times to send me this presentation, and then you say, hey Fabian, I have the same problem like you. I can't send you this large file because my Exchange server says the same message like yours. Then I could say, okay, no problem. I send you a mail with please send it, and instead of saying send data, I say require data, and what it does is it puts a hyperlink into the mail, and this is actually the other way around. which allows you to actually upload something into my folder, into my cloud folder, which is actually a perfect way to just simply describe how things like that could actually work. So in this case, it's not a downloader. It comes up with a standard loader, and it can, the only limitation is that a single file can only be 2 gigs big, right? So, well, that avoids videos and things like that. No, I'm just kidding. So, however, it allows you to exchange files without bothering your Exchange or mail server and still be in control of your entire environment. You're thrilled, right? I can see that in your eyes, that you are exploding internally, right? So, yeah. And you're absolutely right with that. So how can you combine this share file notion, the file sharing, file syncing capabilities with this enterprise mobility? And this is actually something that we deliver in 2 options. The Xen Mobile MDM edition is just the plain enterprise mobility. That's what Citrix acquired 3 months ago. But if you want to be smart, and I'm assuming that you all are, otherwise you would still be at the neighbor booth in the hall, you would definitely go for this one here, right? And Xen Mobile Enterprise Edition is a combination of the Cloud Gateway, Enterprise Mobility, and Enterprise Mobility. No, I'm just kidding. It's a complete bundle of technology that can be used without Citrix XenApp and Xen Desktop and can be used in conjunction. But now comes the cool thing, and that's a limited offer you should think about. That's a promotion which is currently valid until end of June. If you go for the Mobile Solutions bundle, you're not only getting it at an incredibly low price. What Citrix is doing is we are giving you Citrix Sharefile for free on top. It's simply included. So that means it's not just the enterprise mobility technology itself. That's what you need to purchase somewhere else as a separate product. Some of our competitors are only selling it completely with the other things maybe you don't know. Citrix is the only vendor who is selling share files or file synchronization services as a standalone product. We are able to actually give you the perpetual license, in this case, at a reduced price for a complete solution. You will get more information on that at the booth of Arrow. Just definitely think about it. In my eyes, a very good way to enter into all of this. So what does that actually all mean to come to an end with this? Again, technology is one thing. The real important thing always is the why. Ask why you need it. Why do I need Citrix? Why do I need enterprise mobility? Why the heck do I need all of this? And remember the man-made problems I was thinking about. I was an admin myself. You know what? When I had a new employee, it took me almost half a day to get him on board. I took his notebook, which he got. I took the image CD, which I put on top. I had to put the configuration file. So after half a day, I had everything configured so that this guy had his new notebook to work with. In a Citrix world, I don't care what the device is, right? The user can bring his own device. All I do is I'm adding this user to the Active Directory. I'm adding him automatically to a role which he is. Maybe I defined a sales role, a marketing role, an assistant role, R&D, systems engineering. So automatically when the user is added to the Active Directory, he automatically gets all the resources. And as we're device independent, he automatically gets that for his corporate notebook or even for a mobile device, making sure that he automatically gets. Think of the TV cloud. Like in the TV business, I no longer care about the device the user is using. I don't even care if it's his own or if it's corporate. All I care is I add this user to the Active Directory, I assign the role, means the resources and apps to him, and the rest is up to the user. And that actually means that I no longer have to spend so much time with the user because I let him access wherever he is, do that from wherever he is, from whatever device. And I could simply say, hey, when you are here, and that's the MAM approach, when you are here, you can do anything you want. But if you're in your home office, I'm not allowing you to store any of my corporate data on your local storage back at home. I'm not allowing you to print anything because I don't want you to print confidential data on your local printer to take the information out of the building. I'm not allowing you to edit anything. So this is actually where we can do scenario-based policies on not just from which device somebody should do things, we are controlling what a user can do with resources. We are back on the file level saying what a user can do or not. And the great thing is, you know what, this is a funny story I always tell at that stage, is when I left my previous employer and I joined Citrix, after half a year, I thought for a second, when I had some time left, let's try if my admin passwords back at the old companies are still working. What do you think? Of course they did, and all the others too, which I have created. That's a security threat. It is. The problem is there are so many resources, so many logons, you simply forget that. Also, this is something that Citrix is solving, because if a user is leaving my company, I'm simply disabling him, which means regardless on a mobile device or elsewhere, I'm wiping everything out. There is no more access, no more backdoor I could forget, there is nothing. And with the Citrix technology, I'm even making sure that third-party app licenses are going back into the bucket. Means they are available for somebody else. So ladies and gentlemen, the question which I raised, back to that what John F. Kennedy once said, IT problems are man-made, are definitely now, therefore they may be solved by Citrix. And this is actually a promise. Enterprise mobility is not a trend. It's a logical consequence when you do VDI, terminal services computing, or cloud computing without any Windows-based resources. It is controlling the flexibility that you want to give and is making sure that you only share and only let a user do what you think is necessary to do the job. Last but not least, very important here, today, not someday later, you can win an iPad mini at the booth of Arrow. You just have to answer a couple of questions there. Of course, they will be helpful to you when you get there and ask some smart questions. Win this iPad and even think about how Citrix can shape your world here as well. Another thing I would like to say, the region at Citrix have been changed. For the previous 2 years, I had the honor to travel through the Baltic countries and get used to your great countries, to Estonia as well. I made a lot of friends, met a lot of people, and it was a great lifetime experience. But, and I think it was Nelly Furtado once said, all good things come to an end, right? Unfortunately, I have to say goodbye to you simply because the areas have changed at Citrix. That's happening very often. So the Baltics are now serviced and supported by the Citrix team in Finland and the Citrix Nordics. So they are no longer part of the Eastern European region, which means for me, unfortunately, that I cannot continue my job being here. It was fun, I can tell you. I fell in love with your country. So see you next time. Thank you very much.